Welcome everyone to the Hot Mics. I'm your co-host. I'm Anthony, and we got my other co-host Ian. And
What's up?
today we got our special guests. We have Aisha and Shannon. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, Aisha just celebrated a birthday. She told us she just turned 27. So we want to say happy
27.
Happy
birthday to
birthday!
her.
Oh,
Happy
thank you.
yeah.
Happy 27th birthday.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Yes,
we're trying to
yes.
figure out how this math work out. She's my big sister. I'm past 27, but yet she's 27. But
Mind your,
whatever.
mind your business here.
It's called girl math. It's girl math.
It's called girl math. You know, I like that.
That, yeah, that's that common core for you. I'm telling you.
Yeah, there you go.
She's already on it. She's like, hold it for the show. Hold it for the show.
Uh,
We're still on the intro. It's good. It's good. All right. Well, today's topic, we are talking about the education system, and we are also going to talk a little bit about the presidency.
Yep.
Help me out, Ian. Where else are we going with this? Talk to me.
So yeah, Donald Trump just came out with a 10-point plan on changing the educational system, and yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Going to cue up the video real quick to share with us. I'm going to show just a little clip of it.
10 key ideas that will power our movement for great schools. First, we will respect the right of parents to control the education of their children. Second, we will empower parents and local school board to hire and reward great principals and teachers, and also to fire the poor ones, the one whose performance is unsatisfactory. They will be fired. Like on The Apprentice, you're fired. Third, we will ensure our classrooms are focused not on political indoctrination, but on teaching the knowledge and skills needed to succeed. Reading, writing, math, science, arithmetic, and other truly useful subjects. Fourth, we will teach students to love their country, not to hate their country like they're taught right now. Fifth, we will support bringing back prayer to our schools. Sixth, we will achieve schools that are safe, secure, and drug-free, with immediate expulsion for any student who harms a teacher or another student. Seventh, we will give all parents the right to choose another school for their children if they want. It's called school choice. Eighth, we will ensure students have access to project-based learning experiences inside the classroom to help train them for meaningful work outside the classroom. Ninth, we will strive to give all students access to internships and work experiences that can set them on a path to their first job. They're going to be very, very successful. I want them to be more successful than Trump. Let them go out and be more successful. I will be the happiest person in the world. But we want our children to have a great life and be successful. And 10th, we will ensure that all schools provide excellent jobs and career counseling so that high school and college students can get a head start on jobs and careers best suited to their God-given talents. This is how we will ensure a great education for every American child. And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it. You can't.
All right. Yeah, that's Trump's speech in the nutshell. So yeah, we want to get you guys' take on it, and Shannon, being that you are working in the education field, we'd like you to start us off. What you think about Trump's 10-point plan there? I mean, we could take them one by one, or how do you want to digest this?
Well, I have to tell you, I was reading up on it before he, even came in, was elected into office, and I am very nervous for my job because
Mm,
of I'm a service provider now in the school district, and we have a program where our mission statement is we target culturally diverse students and economically challenged. So he is also planning to cut what they call Title I funding.
Right.
And Title I funding services underprivileged and poverty-stricken school districts. And when I think of Sullivan County, I'm going to tell you right now, off the top of my head, I could be wrong, but I don't believe I am. I think all 8 schools in Sullivan County are eligible for Title I funding and receive Title I funding. So that means that everything is going to start with cutting he said he's going to cut everything that has to do with diversity and anything with critical race theory. And
Mhm.
today's students, tomorrow's teachers focuses on diversity and critical race theory. That means no more My Brother's Keeper. All of these diverse programs that serve our underprivileged students are going to be the first to go.
Wow. Wow. Which is a disservice to our communities. I mean, these are the communities that actually need the help, whether it's economically
Absolutely.
deprived or those who are, disenfranchised for whatever reason. Those are the ones who actually need some help with education. So Aisha, what's your take on it?
Well, my one of my biggest concerns is him wanting to eliminate the federal funding for the schools. A lot
Mhm.
of schools depend on federal funds.
Right.
So then what?
No,
Then what
you're
happens
absolutely
then?
right.
So in theory, some of his points sound okay in theory, but
Right.
you have someone that said math and arithmetic.
He said it twice.
So,
Are they different things?
and,
I
and
was
right
the
now,
only one that caught that.
right.
yeah, right. I just pulled up the on the Peter Peterson Foundation's website. Um,
Uh-huh.
Overall, the average is 14% of funding for school comes from the federal government. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you pull that. That's going to be an issue.
Oh, absolutely.
That's going to be a
Absolutely.
serious issue. And, that was actually my number one question with all of this. If we're closing the Department of Education and, we're not going to have them have any influence on the schools, where's that 14% then going to come from? Is the local or state government's going to have to fill that void?
The state is going to have to absorb it, and
The
then
state.
how? Where's it coming from?
Right.
Right, and that's are you going to? I mean, you're going to have to tax taxpayers a little bit more, or cut some funding, or cut some programs in school. Which, schools, from what I hear, schools are running lean as is.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm definitely concerned about that. Anthony, what's your take?
So first of all, I just want to say, for 78, I mean, he looks pretty good for 78. Like, I don't know many like coherent, competent, seemingly for 78. I gotta give it up. Like, I'm wondering, like, is like what's he doing? Like,
A lot of orange spray tan. A lot of orange spray tan.
is he drinking that stuff? Because I'm like, hey, 78 to be the president, that's a stressful job. So I mean,
Yeah, it is
but
stressful.
yeah, but I mean, it all sounds good. So I mean, this is the first time that I've heard anything about any education reform that I've paid attention to that sounds meaningful. So I mean, at the very least, at least he's paying us lip service, right? Because we all know education reform is long overdue, right?
Hmm.
So I mean, kudos to him. And then if it actually transpires, I would like to see more training, more job opportunities, more of the children's being prepared for the workforce, right?
Right.
Right out of school. All it can do is get better. It can't get worse, in my opinion.
Well, it can get worse.
I'll
Yeah,
take that gauntlet.
yeah. No, it definitely. You're right. It can get worse. But I think he did have some points there. I mean, we as a nation are spending the most. I don't know. I don't even know if that part played, but um, uh, on that clip, he talked about us as a nation spending the most per capita on our students. However, we're not getting a return on that spending, we're not getting, the exact return on that spending. We're spending so much, and kids are coming out mediocre. I think the United States is like 17th out of all developed nations when it comes to education. So, I think, and to me, that comes from um,
Lack of preparation.
us
That doesn't
just
have
throwing money
anything
at
to do with
problems.
funding.
Well, I think we just throw money at problems and not necessarily, like you said, have preparation, have a plan or anything to solve the problem. We just say, "Hey, there's a problem. Let's throw money at it," which is, which is definitely an issue. One of his other parts was prayer in school. How do you guys feel about that?
It depends
Well,
on how you
can we
approach prayer
backtrack?
in school.
Can
So
we
many different
backtrack?
religions.
Hold on, can we answer the question and then backtrack? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, that's what we'll do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prayer in school, I wouldn't mind prayer in school, but how are they going to approach prayer in school? There's so many different
Right.
religions, so you have to be respectful for everyone, and then you got to be respectful to the atheists also.
Right.
So how do
Right.
you do that? So it depends on how they do it.
Yeah, how you approach it, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the same feeling I have. How do you approach it? Are we going to be fair to everyone and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily put our opinion or spin or religion on something?
Oh,
So yeah, being fair to everyone. So Shannon, you said you wanted to backtrack real quick.
yes, because, I was listening to what both you and Anthony were saying. And, I do hear the point about the fact of just throwing money at problems. I think that America is
Mm-hmm.
guilty of just throwing money at problems. However, me being in the field that I've been in, the field of education for 20 years, prior
Mm-hmm.
to Barack Obama coming out with the My Brother's Keeper program, and prior to my becoming an employee in the Today's Students, Tomorrow's Teachers program, I wrote my own mentor program based similar to Barack Obama's mission of breaking the school to prison pipeline with our
Mm-hmm.
minority students. Okay, so there's also not just the school to prison pipeline. A lot of our minority, Black and Hispanic, underprivileged children do not have the resources that their counterparts have. So these programs avail those resources and that exposure to college visits and exposure to different educational conferences and things like that. If all of that is taken away from them, where is the motivation and where is the push and the drive, aside from the hands-on that he's talking about?
So one of the things he did say was that all schools will offer a job in career counseling, and I thought of that in that sense that maybe they would do like college tours and stuff like that um, as part of it. I don't know if I read that wrong but that's how I looked at it.
Shannon, I love these phrases you're throwing out there. You're just, if this is a fight, you're dropping like haymakers. You're like, the what is it? My Brother's Keeper program, today's teachers, tomorrow's keepers, right?
No,
So,
today's
and I really
students,
like the
tomorrow's
point you make
keepers.
about excellent. And I really like the point that you made about minority, Black, and Hispanic underprivileged children not having resources other have, right? Because
Hmm.
as my children enter high school, I noticed the difference out of economic backgrounds, right? Not just ethnic, but economic as well, that give their children the proper exposure, right? So,
Right.
I noticed personally as a father, I'm proactive to drive through the university areas, right? And I go through with my kids when there's an opportunity. Like, look, this is what it looks like. This is what happens after high school. This is why that you're paying the price now, right? This is why you're learning to master your grades. So I think there's a lot to be said about us taking personal responsibility for our children. But you're right, you're totally right about what you're saying. If funding to that gets cut, there will definitely need to be more people stepping up in their communities, right? Communities are going to have to step up. Parents are going to have to step up.
Right.
You know, and I think one of the worst things that have happened is people relying on the government, right? You know, like that's one of the worst things that has happened. So hopefully, maybe we can get the word out, right? Maybe with avenues like this show, there will be more personal responsibility. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I'm going to tell you
I
from
mean, I
working
agree
with
with
the
you. I mean, personal
parents,
responsibility is part of the formula.
and
Yeah,
that's
go ahead,
not
Shannon. I'm sorry.
happening. That's not happening. I'm sorry, Ian. I didn't mean to cut you off, but in my 20 years of
No, you
working in the
good.
school district, the parent involvement piece is the biggest piece that lacks. So you have a lot of single parent homes where you only have either the mother or the father or grandma raising the children. Sometimes the parents aren't even home when the kids get home from school. So you don't have they don't have the resources. It's parents step up. If parents are working, how are they coming and going to the school events and the school functions? I've seen all of that. I attend the school functions. There's not a lot of parent involvement. Parents are not getting involved. Yes, I agree with you. You know, me being a mother, parents need to get more involved, but that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Aisha,
Yeah. Go ahead.
sorry,
Sorry. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Ian, go ahead. You were going. I was keeping the
No,
conversation
no,
going. You
no,
go,
no, no. Go ahead,
please,
Aisha. Go
please.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
go
Pastor
ahead, go
Aisha.
ahead. Say what you was gonna say.
You got the hot potato.
So I think part of the problem is finding out why parents are not involved, why families are not involved. I don't know. When my children were going to school, I was very involved. So it's like, and I was a single parent working, going to school at full time and working, and still made time for my children. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with that as far as how to get parents involved. But on the other hand, I don't think just because parents are involved, I don't think it's then becomes the government responsibility either.
Right.
You know what I mean? It got to be some type of, and I don't know how. I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But um, if you look at, I know just with me tutoring, teaching English as a second language, um, of students in Taiwan and different places, there's an expectation in school and there's an expectation at home.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what make those places so much, but educational wise, you know. Um, but if there's no expectation at home, and that's regardless whether you have, you know what I mean. It needs to. It starts at home. I'm sorry. I'm a true believer in it starts at home.
I agree
100%.
100%. I can't
And if
attest
there's
to
no
that.
expectation, yeah. And if there's no expectation at home, right? The concept of it takes a village to raise a child is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no expectation coming from the home, period, and then they're going into school, what is their expectation going to be?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what the fix is, but
So there's no way. So basically, there's a clear cut consensus. There's no way to make it fair for all children universally, right? Like there is a tie to the level of accountability being held at home, the level of, you know, if there's parental involvement. Like, you know, would you say that? Would you say that? Would you agree?
yeah, I don't think it's no way. You're asking, is there any way to fix it? Well, what are you
Yeah,
asking?
yeah. No, there's no like there is no because there's a word that we like to throw around fairness, right? So. You know, like there's no way to to have an equal playing ground, right? It really a lot of what happens with the next generation will be directly because of the level of parental engagement, the level of
Mm-hmm.
parental involvement. So there's no way to put someone who has a parent that's one parent that's aloof on the same level leaving home as someone who has two parents that are actively involved. You know, I'm asking.
I think if there's an expectation, if a parent can't
Yes.
make everything and be as evolved, you know, as you may want them, there should always be an expectation coming from home.
Right, and I think Shannon is saying that these programs, if correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're saying that these programs help bridge the gap of inequity, right? For parents that
Absolutely.
want to be involved but due to hardship. Okay.
No, you're talking about resources, right?
I'm talking
Well, we're just talking
resources.
about this.
Yeah, I'm not talking about resources. I'm
We're
not
talking
talking
about
about
accountability.
resources. Yeah, I'm
Aisha's
talking about
talking
accountability.
about accountability, yes, and accountability is a huge thing. And like Aisha said, she was a single mom. I was a single mother, you know, and the expectation piece is huge. If you start from home, like Aisha said, with expectations of your children that, you know, school and education is important, then there is going to be a level of, how do I want to say it? Of accountability coming from the children themselves, because they're going to know that at home, okay, this is what's expected from me as far as my education. I think that's what Aisha's saying. But what I'm
Right. That's what.
saying is,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
how do we get the parents to understand how important their involvement is? Because from my experience, I worked for an organization where we actually provided transportation for parents to come out and speak to us as school personnel as to what we can do to make their children's education more productive, and how can we get them involved? What are their concerns regarding issues in the school? And the parents would agree that they were going to come, but then the taxis would be outside of their homes and they wouldn't show up. And this went on for weeks upon weeks upon weeks. So it's a matter of, how do we get the parents to realize that it's important for them to be involved and hold them accountable.
That's an account right. That's an accountability thing from the parent's perspective. And if the parent is not accountable, they're just not accountable. And I don't think there's no. I mean, to be honest, what can we do about that? There's nothing we can do about somebody who doesn't want to be a parent in all aspects. You know, that's not the government's fault. That's nobody's fault, actually. That's their fault.
But it's not the kids' fault that they have to suffer because their parents are not responsible and are not being held accountable. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you have drugs
I,
involved in some
no, I
homes.
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but there's nothing, in my opinion. What could we do about it? Nothing. If their parents choose not to be involved and their parents choose not to, you know, push them to be educated, there's nothing we can do about that. You know
That's
what I
where
mean?
we come in at
Besides
with
take them out
these.
of the house.
Now, that's where we come at with these programs, to expose them to see things that
Mhm.
they are not used to seeing, to hope that they will desire and yearn to be successful.
So let me ask you a question with these programs, right? Because these programs, as you said, you looked it up and it seems to be on a chopping block. So are these programs successful at helping these parents understand how important school is for their kids?
Well, I'm going to speak for both the My Brother's Keeper program and the one I work for now. Absolutely, because there
Okay.
is an expectation in these programs as well. Like, today's students, tomorrow's teachers, you have to have an 85 average in order to maintain
So
in the program. They
No, he's
pay
so
talking
up
that's
to
about
the
the.
50.
students. No, I'm talking
He's
about
talking about the
the
Yes.
parents.
parents.
Well,
Hmm.
the parents,
The
we
parents.
have the parents know what the students' responsibilities are in,
But what
as
about the
far as,
parents' responsibilities? Like, are you seeing anything change as far as the parents being more involved with their kids' education and stuff like that? Are
in
you
Yes.
guys
this,
seeing this? So
coming from this program, yes, because these
okay,
students are scholarly students. Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So those are the type of programs that we need. Then those are the type of programs
This
that.
is why I'm saying these programs are needed.
Mhm. Yeah, these are the type of programs we need if there's a change. So yeah, we need these programs.
If I could get up, I would give you the statistical rates of the change in attendance, suspension rate, and all of that in the 1 year that we started with the My Brother's Keeper program. I can share the statistics at a later time, but I can't get up. But there was a huge difference across the board in these programs.
Yeah. One of the things you were talking about the suspension rate, right? And one of Trump's points was, I think it was point number 6. He said that immediate expulsion of kids who harm teachers or other students. What do you guys think about that? Should we, kick schools out, kick kids out of school indefinitely or permanently because they got into a fight?
No,
Or
because what if you're defending yourself?
I agree with you.
So
So
it's like you can't defend yourself.
I
Right.
don't know. Fights were the best part of school. You know
I
what
know,
I mean?
To be honest, as kids, you're gonna have little tussles. You're gonna have little disagreements, and when we went to school, a lot of times it was just a fight. It really, I mean, did it go home sometimes? But it really didn't go as far as some of these kids take it nowadays. I mean, we're
Right.
seeing, the mass shootings going on in schools and stuff like that. That stuff didn't happen when we were in school. At least I don't recall. I think,
No.
yeah, none of that stuff happened until after I graduated high school.
Don't you remember the scandals with the it was an outrage when they were bringing metal detectors into schools. Remember that?
Right. Yeah.
So
Well, in the school district that I work in, one of them, they have metal detectors now.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, I'm 50-50 on metal detectors being in schools, but if it's keeping our kids safe, why not?
So when he uses the word harm, I'm sure he doesn't mean like a scuffle. We're gonna, it's like, random fist fight, a couple kids, in middle school. I can't see immediate expulsion as the appropriate response, right?
Right.
But I do see like harm, right? People are bringing weapons, right? This is turning into a gang zone, right? Like there's a history of violence, escalation. This is a problem. Police are being called. Like there's levels to it, right?
hmm
So
Yeah,
I
I agree with you.
definitely see it as an appropriate response in some situations.
So overall, how are we grading Trump's plan so far? I mean, what's your grade on it, Anthony?
Well, in terms of lip service, this is the most magnanimous lip service that anyone has ever paid me, right?
Okay.
As far as hey, like now it's going to rain Skittles, right? Over all the education systems. So
Right.
I mean, this sounds glorious. So if he can accomplish half of what he proposes, right? Half of what he proposes, and it's all positive. I mean, like I said, I don't have a lot of faith. I'm looking, I'm here down here in Florida, and I see what education is, and I didn't understand how good we had it in New York, right?
Right.
Like in New York's nothing really great either, but there's a lot of problems that there's on so many levels. I mean, we could literally do a show exclusively on education reform. Right, there's so many things that are wrong that need reformation and change. So the fact that that's one of his 10 major points for his campaign, like him, love him, hate him, like I'm grateful that someone is trying to address it.
All right. Aisha, Shannon?
If I may just add to that, Anthony, I honestly do agree with reform in education. I'm not saying I agree with how he plans to go about it, but I have been begging for reform in education for many years
Right.
in different aspects.
Yes.
Right. I agree with you. Aisha?
If it can be done without shutting down the Department of Education,
Amen. I agree
Yeah.
with that. I'm
then
on
I
your
can
Yeah.
roll
page.
with it.
Is that what he
Yes.
said? He's shutting down
Yes.
on the
Yes.
federal level.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, right? So what role does the federal Department of Education serve?
We get funding. A lot of the school districts get funding from the federal government. The organization that I work for submits grants to the federal government to get funding to help sustain the organization that I work for.
So
So,
besides
Yeah.
funding, what else are they doing for us?
federal, honestly, I have never really looked too deep into it. I'm sure there's some retirement that goes into the federal funding. I'm sure there's other aspects. I mean, that could be a whole nother topic.
Okay, no, I'm curious because I mean I know he talked about his first campaign clearing the swamp, so to speak, getting rid of this massive bureaucracy, which is rewarded it was rewards inefficiencies. So for him, he's saying, hey, I'm going to reform education and clean up this area. Aisha, what do you think? Tell me about you talked about getting rid of it, but besides the funding part, what value do they bring offhand? Does anybody even have an idea besides funding?
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, you got
my biggest thing
one second.
is the funding. My biggest thing is the funding,
Funding,
because then
funding.
where's that extra funding coming from?
Okay. Anyone else besides funding? Does it serve a purpose? Because I mean, we
Well,
can
yeah,
get
I
anyone
mean,
else to write us a check.
yeah, I mean, the Department of Education, higher education is part of that. Adult
Oh
programs.
yes, Pell
Um,
Grants. Pell Grants
yeah,
are going to get
yeah,
cut,
yeah.
and
You
that's
Funding again,
that's
funding
people.
again, funding.
That's yes.
student loans. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, student
He
loans is funding, Pell Grant is funding, but that's at a different level. Instead of just K through 12, that's higher education, which I mean, definitely affects those who those who look like us.
Okay. All right.
I
Very
mean,
interesting. Very interesting.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, man, my first 2 years of school, well, my first was it was a little bit longer than 2 years, but anyway, my education in community college depended on Pell Grant.
Yep.
I didn't have no
Mine
money.
as well. Mine did
Yeah,
as well.
That is true.
yeah, I had no money. I mean, student loans, that seems to be attacked by the right, and they have some points, but also, I mean, hey, how do you level the playing field a little bit? I mean, some people need student loans in order to go to school, and then some people get into student loan debt and don't even understand student loan debt. I mean, I remember being 17 years old, going to college, and student loans were offered to me, and I
Yep.
had no clue what student loans was. And then I looked at some of my other classmates, and they was like, "Yo, we're taking student loans to go shopping." I'm like, "Bet, sign me up." I had no clue what it was.
Yep.
Right.
So
Yeah.
but yeah, I
So
mean,
so so I like what New York has done. New York has made the SUNY and CUNY schools free,
right.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So I mean, I think that's a major step in the right direction. That's really a major step. So I mean, so by defunding the federal Department of Education, I believe that he's empowering the states to take authority in their own hands, because of
hmm
that is what the big power grab has been. The federal government wanted to grab more power, right? So by decentralizing the economic power structure for the school system and giving it to the states, hey, New York, empower your people, right? I don't know, again, we're discussing it, but I think it can be good.
Yeah, I think there's, like I said, I think there's some good points in it. But and then a thing that I have with the Trump administration is that there's ideas that's thrown out, but there's no explanation of how it's going to work. Like we're all talking about the funding to the schools, but if we cut the Department of Education, how are these schools going to get funded? Nobody talks about that. Like the details
Right.
behind it, we're not talking about. It's just hey, throw these ideas out there, and let's see what sticks.
No, because his idea is let's just cut it, and we're not with no explanation, and that's where the issue lies
hmm
for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, and then you also got to think about it. If he does cut the Department of Education, the people who work in the Department of Education are now going to be unemployed, and that's a issue fiscally for them, and for the economy. Now you got less people putting into the economy.
Can I also explain to you how that's going to also affect the teachers if there's no one in the Department of Education? Because
Please.
every teacher has an account, and everything that you do now is all online.
Really?
Who's working the system when they need certain paperwork, when teachers need to recertify their teacher certification, when the new teachers that come graduate and are getting ready to get into the field, who are they sending their paperwork to get their certifications? That all is the Department of Education.
Wow.
So a lot of this stuff is not thought about prior to.
Wow.
And that's Department of Education on a federal level, because I'm sure
Yes.
there's a state Department of Education too, right?
There's a state and federal, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, in my opinion, it'll probably default back to the state. But no, I understand your concerns. And so what we gather is our primary concerns are funding being cut, um, so I guess you fear that the states won't replace the funding, huh?
No, absolutely. There are a lot of states are already in debt now. So where's
Yeah,
that
how
funding
could they?
coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah, how could they?
How can they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, we got to figure it out. I want to mention the school district in Westchester County that their athletic field had a dome, right? Like, you know, I
Mhm.
couldn't believe they had two types of tennis courts. You know, like I could not believe what this school was offering their students. So, you know, it's like the disparity because of what's coming in from from donations and
Right.
the local tax base, right? Because that is the way the education system currently works. I see how being taxed on a local level directly impacts your local school, right? The majority of the funding comes from the local level. So if you live in an affluent tax base, then that school gets better funding. So that
Right.
automatically creates inequity,
Right.
right?
That's where I'm coming from. Yes, that the
So
inequities and the disparities. Yes.
so my proposed solution, right, it would be would be as on a state level to collect all the tax, right, and
Mhm.
then redistribute equally. Of course, you know, the people in the more affluent levels, they're going to throw, you know, raise hell, but you know, rising tide raises all ships. If we can get the extra funding into the lower levels, perhaps those kids aren't so so delinquent.
Right.
Right.
Well, you know, and one of Trump's plans was to, you know, for parents to have the choice to send their kids to whatever school they want to go to.
Right. And they
I mean,
also
that,
have to give them. They'll also have to get them there too, though.
but that's a good point.
Yeah, so how's that going to happen?
That's a good point.
That's why I say he throws all these ideas out there. How, you know, it sounds great.
So
But
Yeah.
how's it gonna happen?
it's more practical in the city, right? Like my
Right.
son's
Right. Right.
going. You know, we live in a city, and he's being offered different high schools, right? Where there's a
Right.
technical one, there's an arts one. So you know, so it's more practical there than in a rural place where there's one school for for X amount of square mile radius.
Right.
Right. Not everybody gets the white bus pass and could go to, you know, wherever you go to school.
That's my whole point.
Right.
That's the
Right.
Yeah.
inequities
And
that
even in
I'm
the city,
talking
like
about.
so. But I mean, you know, even in a situation where he has that opportunity, he still would need to get up at 5 in the morning to jump on
Right.
3 buses, right, every day for 4 years, and then still, and kids do that, possibly. You know, like
Right.
that's an old school journey. These kids ain't built like that. You know what I'm saying? like our generation would have relished, like, yeah, all right, I'll get up early, and we thinking about all the freedom. You know, they're like, man, I ain't doing that, man. I'm trying to get home and play
Yeah.
video games. You cut into my time.
You're doing too much. That's what the kids say. You're doing too much. You're doing too much. All right. So overall consensus is that, you know, there's, you know, from what I'm hearing is, you know, there needs to be more details and definitely don't need to cut the Department of Education, right?
Right.
I disagree. Nay. All in favor? Aye.
Were you disagreeing?
Nay. Nay. No, I mean, yeah, cut them. So for me, I'm not a proponent of strong federal government. I think that the federal government is just they're a beast. So it's like you take a bribe from them. You have to play by their rules, right? I think that may be part of the reason why we have all these weird agendas, right? Like
Are you saying take
literally,
a bribe, or if you get any like funding from the federal government, you gotta?
well, I mean,
That's the
tomatoes,
bribe.
tomatoes,
Oh,
tomatoes,
that's the
tomatoes,
bribe.
right? You know,
That's the bribe.
yeah.
But I
So
think you're but no, you're biased though, Anthony.
no, I mean, look, I'm a
I was
proponent
going
of
to say,
freedom,
I think he
right?
is too.
So look, I'm a freedom proponent, right? I'm like, look, stay out of my life. Less
Mm-hmm.
government is better,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, like we live in the land of the free, so let me at least feel like I'm free. But once you take that dollar, you're doing a deal with the devil. Now you need to go and promote there's 76 different genders. You know, there's 51 flavors of gender and identity. Like, this is weird. You know, I even got my immigrant friends. They're like, yo, what's going on in America? The West is weird. This is not normal, right? This is weird stuff, and it's coming from the federal government level. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, cool.
Can we talk
Any
about
closing
another
statements from
topic?
anybody?
Yes, I want to talk about another topic.
Go
Good
ahead,
What you
shoot
morning.
it.
got? Shoot.
The mass deportation.
Well, is it? Oh, okay. We're gonna go into overtime with that one.
Oh,
We're
I
going into
like it. I
overtime with
like
that
it.
one.
Spicy.
So we're gonna
Spicy. I like.
we're gonna wrap up this show, and we're gonna go into overtime and talk a little bit about mass deportation and the border czar. What's his name? Tom Homeland, I think. Yeah, is his name. So yeah, we're going to overtime about that. I ask
And
everybody to like, share, subscribe, comment
wait,
below, give us your
wait.
feedback on it. Go ahead, Anthony. What you got?
Any final thoughts from our guests, right, before we wrap it up?
Yeah.
No,
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts on
Nope.
education?
No? You
no.
can't say no. That was me telling you final thoughts. That wasn't really a
Said
question.
no.
That was me telling you hey. That wasn't a
No
rhetorical
final
question.
thoughts.
Do not
Same thing.
cut.
What you got?
Boo, boo, boo. Do not cut the Department of Education. I am totally against it.
Okay, got you. I'm against it as well. I don't think you should cut the Department of Education. I do agree with some of his 10 points. Some of them do sound great. We need some more details behind it, but I
I
don't think we
was
should cut the
I
Department
was
of
gonna
Education.
say I would be for it only if there was a plan in place,
Got you.
a
Ladies,
strategic
ladies,
plan.
Well,
thank
I'll
you so
third
much,
on
ladies,
that.
for your time. We really appreciate
Yes.
you coming on as guests. I was saying thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for coming on as guests. I really appreciate your time, and it's always a pleasure with you co-hosts. So thank you
Yeah,
much.
definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ant. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Aisha. Thank you, Shannon. And
Thank
we're
you for
gonna go into
having us.
overtime in just a minute. Yes. All right, everybody.
Overtime.
Good night now.